Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Story Night's flagship season, Life, Punctuated. Tonight, true stories live on stage and without notes on the theme ampersand. Here are your hosts, Jodi Eichelberger in Boise and Leanne Thurston in Idaho Falls. Ladies and gentlemen,
wow, two hosts at once. Welcome to Story Night, Life Punctuated. I am Jodi Eichelberger. This is Leanne Thurston. Whoop, she fell off the screen there. I see her shadow on the side. Leanne, walk closer to the other mic. There you go. First, before we get back to our host in Idaho Falls, I want to thank our amazing musicians who have been broadcasting in Boise and Idaho Falls, Evett and Costello. And actually, we have a couple of tokens for them for drinks and snacks, and I forgot to give them to them before the show, so I'm going to do that now.
Thanks, Jodi.
All right, well, welcome. I'm very excited to be here.
And we don't know who is trying to Skype into our conversation, but
We're very
hello,
popular.
Leanne. Hello.
Hi. Hi, welcome from Idaho Falls. I'm very excited to be here. This is the first time we are broadcasting in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, and
Oh.
a while back, I got an email from Idaho Falls from Leanne saying, "Hey, how could we how could we do a story night in Idaho Falls?" And when we came up with the ampersand idea, I said, "Hey, Leanne, what do you think if we try to do a live simulcast between Boise and Idaho Falls?"
And I was basically like, yeah, that'd be great. You should totally do that. Not thinking I would be involved.
And now she's the host there. I do apologize for that ringing sound. I am afraid that in our sophisticated tech society that is what we're going to have when we have the sound from Idaho Falls. So hopefully it'll become like the ocean waves and white noise receding into the distance. Before we get started, of course, we do need to thank some sponsors. And so if you would help me in thanking our sponsors, we have our senior sponsor, Pettit Group Realty. Thank you. And we also have our show sponsor tonight, the Idaho Women's Lawyers. And then we actually have an extra sponsor that Leanne is going to tell you about, too.
Yeah, so we are also today sponsored by the Idaho Endowment of the Arts and the Idaho Commission on the Arts, and the National Endowment of the Arts. We received grant money, and that is frankly how we were able to host this show here in Idaho Falls today. So everyone help me thank them. Appreciate that.
Maybe that is the NEA calling us right now. I understand the government is operating again today, so they must be in their offices. All right, so 2 shows in 1. That's pretty great. We better just get started. It's a tale from 2 cities, which reminds me of another great beginning. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness.
It was the epoch of belief.
It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light.
It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope.
It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us.
We had nothing before us. We all were going direct to heaven.
We all were going direct the other way.
Well, before that happens, let's get started with our first storyteller, which is in Boise, so the ring will be going away. But I am wondering, I don't know how we're going to do with this ring in the background of the stories when we get to Idaho Falls. Call him back. We actually ended the call a couple of times, and for some reason we cannot. I didn't realize Skype was so persistent and would keep trying for hours and hours and hours.
You'd think they'd give up.
We have lots of ideas. Hey, Leanne, before we get started, let me show you who's shouting out ideas here.
All right. There's our live audience in Boise.
Well, we're so excited to be sharing with Idaho Falls tonight. Our first featured storyteller we would like to welcome to the stage is Jankowski.
Thanks, Jodi. My hands are scalding as I'm running from the sanitizer to the cupboards. The plates come out boiling hot and I wrap them up in a towel. But even wrapped in a towel, if I miss a single step in this transit, I'll get a blister on my palms, and that'll be a deal breaker for canoeing after breakfast. Tom Petty is blaring on the boombox out in the mess hall. I'm running back and forth between the cupboards and the sanitizer. Mike is mopping the floors, and Eric is scraping the scraps of the toast and bits of peanut butter into this cauldron of coffee and other discards from breakfast that we euphemistically refer to as the bucket of happiness. It's 1995, summer camp at Camp Niati, and this is the highlight of my summer. It's a week of boys camp where we get to go explore in the woods, hiking and canoeing and shooting and swimming, and it's this time to be part of a family away from home. We've got these incredible counselors who, for many of us campers, are our first mentors that aren't teachers or parents. These 18, 19-year-old boys are unguarded in the woods, and they're telling us stories of life lessons and love lost, and they captivate our attention around the campfire. And we just look up to them. These guys are gods. Rumor is that one of them was able to navigate all the way across the lake using his canoe, find the girls' camp on the other side, and make out with the girl. So I've known ever since I was 8, I want to be a counselor, and I'm super excited this summer because I'm a cookie. It's the first step after being a camper to become a counselor. I want to be a mentor just like them. And the cookies, we exchange a little bit of grunt work for a lot of freedom. We don't have to pay the fees of going to camp, so our parents are super happy, and we don't have the schedule of the campers, so we can go ride in the canoes or go rifle shooting anytime that we want. It's amazing. Above the junior counselors above the cookies are the junior counselors, and these guys are the badasses of camp. The junior counselors could drive their own cars to camp. They didn't have to rely on their parents. They had facial hair, and they had really cool knives that they could use to shave their facial hair, just like in Crocodile Dundee. But these guys were a little bit scary. It was like, you take a little bit of testosterone and the occasional alcohol, and it mixes into bad decisions and amazing stories. The counselors above the junior counselors were in charge of keeping cabins of 8 kids alive. They'd bring them from meals to the different activities at camp, and these young boys, 18-year-old guys, they'd be the caretakers for little kids who were away from home. So imagine an 18-year-old taking care of 8-year-olds who were homesick and wanted their parents. These guys were amazing caretakers. So keeping the kids alive at camp was actually a pretty difficult thing to do because the junior counselors were always instigating raids between the different cabins. So I remember last summer, one of the junior counselors showed me how to take a smoke bomb and put it on the windowsill of one of the one-room cabins and close the slat on the outside so all the smoke goes in and all of the campers come out. And there you are waiting with your pillows, and thwack, the forest would just erupt into laughter and pillow fighting thwackiness. And it was hilarious for the most part. This is where you saw the good mentorship play out. The good camp counselors would show their campers how to make formation around their weakest members and find higher ground. And the bad mentors, they would cut corners. You'd have kids who'd put candy bars in the bottom of their pillowcases. And if you took a pillowcase with a candy bar to the side, that leaves a welt. And this would instigate an arms race amongst the other campers. So the kid that gets hit with the candy bar might put a baseball on the bottom of his pillowcase. And at the next raid, you can see who's got the baseball, because just boom, 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 there's just kids dropping around him. And this is against the Geneva Conventions of camp, and war criminals will be punished. And the punishment is rained down by the junior counselors. So the baseball kid, he got dragged out into the far end of the woods where there's this swamp, and he got tossed into the swamp. And I know what you're thinking. What's little swamp water compared to a baseball to the face, right? Well, this swamp is full of leeches. So the camper comes out covered in leeches, and the junior counselors can't very well bring a camper back that's completely covered in leeches, so they do them the favor of removing those leeches. And the easiest way to do that is to pee on them. These guys are brilliant, and you really can't fault their creativity. The night before, the junior counselors raided the cookie cabin where I'm asleep, or at least I'm pretending to be so. And they're after Mike, who had done a bad job of cleaning the bathrooms the day before. And they run and they duct tape him down to his bunk, and they flip the bunk bed upside down, so he was at the bottom and now he's at the top, and they toss the upper bunkmate onto the floor during this inversion, and now Mike's stuck upside down in a duct tape cocoon, and he's wriggling around trying to get out, and he's kind of a heavier fellow, so the duct tape doesn't hold for very long. You hear this rip, rip, and then thud as he lands into the springs of the inverted mattress. And while this is happening, I'm pretending to be asleep because I don't want any of this. And so far I've stayed safe at camp, and I don't know if it's because I've kept a low profile, because I've been around the block and I know what goes on at camp, or if it's because of the ugly stick, which I sleep with. The ugly stick is this gnarled, charred piece of wood that I've carved the words ugly stick into the side of, and I use it as a deterrent when I'm at my most vulnerable. But I know it's a stopgap measure. If I ever actually have to hit a junior counselor with the ugly stick, I know I'm destined for the swamp. The next day at lunch, I'm mopping up afterwards, and I see a pack of junior counselors running through the mess hall straight at me, and they're shouting about Eric, and my heart drops. And then they rush past, and I remember there's another Eric. And I'm super thankful that I can return to my work unmolested. And as I'm finishing up the mopping, I open up the walk-in freezer to get the last little bit that's in there, and there he is, the other Eric. And he's sitting on top of this 5-gallon pail of pickles. It's bright green, and he's sitting there with these sad little puffs of condensed breath coming out of his mouth, seemingly saying, "Don't do it." But what happens next is automatic. I turn to the mess hall and I yell, "Guys, he's in the freezer!" And a second later, they're dragging him out of the mess hall, and he's grabbing onto tables and chairs, trying to break free, but there's too many of them, and they're too fast, and as they're pulling him out of the mess hall, I'm following a short distance behind to see what's going to happen. And they drag him down to the waterfront, and they pour the bucket of happiness all over him, hoist him on their shoulders, and carry him out to the dock, and toss him into the lake, where before Eric is able to surface, there's a sheen of oil and peanut butter and toast on top of the water, that he's forced to suffer the indignity of swimming through the second time. And as he's crawling out of the water, I can see that he's coming for me next. And I'm like, balls. I did the right thing, right? If I didn't rat him out, then the junior counselors would figure that out, and I'd be going for the swamp. But by ratting him out, I thought I was choosing between Eric or the junior counselors, but from his perspective, now it's clear that it's the junior counselors and me that are the bad guys. I'm complicit. I did a bad thing. Things got a little out of control at camp that summer, and a couple weeks later, I was being interviewed by the police. And they wanted to know, did Steve just use that knife to shave, or did he threaten Mike in the bathroom? And were they tickling Eric to make him let go of those chairs, or were they hitting him? And during the interrogation, I can only think of two things. One, is how quickly I ratted out Eric and how I deserve to go to prison. And 2, if I do end up there, I'll be moderately advanced in my ability to make makeshift weapons in a short amount of time. Fortunately, I didn't go to prison that summer, and they cleaned up camp in the years that followed, including making a rule about the junior counselors not being able to bring duct tape. I never fulfilled my dream of becoming a counselor. I got distracted by a career in science. And 22 years later, I'm a professor, and I never gave up the dream of being a good mentor, though. And I try to be a good mentor to my students, both in my lab and in my classroom. But I worry about the things that are automatic. Even though we've traded our campfires for PowerPoint and the cabins for classrooms, I worry about the moments like in the freezer with Eric. I worry about times when we're complicit in a culture of abuse before we know it's too late. Who do we condemn to the bucket of happiness when we're not actively working to clean it? Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Eric had a head start on that story because a little while ago they had a joint production with a group called StoryCorps, actually another national group, and we just made him replace his bucket of happiness. He had to take the science out and put in ampersands, and so he was able to get that story in again. Hey, Leanne.
Hey, Jodi.
So we did some consulting with our tech department, and what we've
going back.
What we've decided to do is be super technological, and I'm going to call you on my phone, and we're going to switch the sound from your microphone to the speakerphone on my iPhone. So your storytellers will get to tell their story into the phone and the microphone at the same time, apparently.
Hello.
Just a minute. Speaker. All right, we're switching over. Say it again.
Can you hear me now?
All right, I've got you on full volume. Yes, I think this. We're all happier with this, aren't we? Even though I do not look nearly as cool as I did a few minutes ago. All right. So, Leanne, I get to stand at the microphone with you and your storytellers, apparently.
Aren't you special?
We're going to go to Idaho Falls now, and you get to, I guess, pass your phone over to the storyteller after you introduce them.
Okay. Well, our storyteller here. Can you guys in Idaho Falls hear me? Okay, just making sure. Our next storyteller is up from Fort Hall Reservation. This is Randy L. Teton.
Randy L. Teton, everyone. Yes, we can.
Okay. This is really odd. I've never done this before. Okay, so my name is Randiel He-Dow Teton. I am a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes of Fort Hall, Idaho, and I served as the model for the United States Mint Native American golden dollar called the Sacagawea golden dollar coin. Thank you. her story is an amazing story, and I don't have all the time to tell you tonight. But what was special was that I was able to share our Native American perspective with this artist that was chosen by the United States Mint. And when I went to model for her in Santa Fe, we talked about what I would wear, and we wanted to make sure that we were culturally accurate. And so Glenna was able to get a deerskin dress from a local gallery, and it was delivered in a trash bag. And being that I was going to school for Native American Studies and Museum Studies, I was appalled because this beautiful deerskin dress that's aged 200 years old was delivered in a black trash bag. My next worry was, is it going to fit? And it did. And I knew at that point that this felt right about doing this modeling shoot. I've never modeled before, maybe a little bit for commercials, but not like to this extent. And we were able to, I braided my hair in 2 braids, like our Shoshone women do, and our Bannock women. And we were able to capture the image of what Sacagawea may have looked. But we're missing something. We're missing a baby. The baby that she carried with her was about 6 to 10 months old. And so the artist had a doll in her studio, and she says, pick it up and let's put it on my back. So I picked it up, and I put it on my back, and I replicated what we would have done to carry our baby. And a year goes by from that day that I modeled, and I did not hear a peep from the artist, so I had no idea what was going on. And I get a call from the United States Mint Director, Philip Dill, who served in the Clinton administration, and he said, congratulations, you're in the top 10, you and Glenna's the artist. I was shocked. I had a lot of mixed emotions going through my head because I'm a college student. And then he said, we are going to place the images on the United States Mint.gov website, and this is going to be the first time that America will be able to vote on the top image. And that to me was awesome, because the first thought that came to my head was, I'm going to be on the website. I'm going to be on the World Wide Web. Awesome. And this is a time when we all didn't have laptops. We all didn't have phones. We had pagers. And so he said they were going to appear on the web at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, which was 4 o'clock Mountain Time. So you can imagine I did not sleep all night. And I went to the local computer pod at University of New Mexico unveiling of the dollar image, and it was an amazing feeling. This is my daughter, by the way. She's proud of me, and she thinks that's worth the coin, and I say yes. But what happened at that unveiling ceremony was amazing. They dropped down a big black robe, and I was able to see the coin that you all see today. And they called up my name, and I was able to go up there with all of the official dignitaries, along with Hillary and Glenn and Goodacre, and we were able to share it with the world. And then a couple months, the coin officially came out to the public, and guess where it came out? It was introduced to the public in Walmart. And that's cool because the doll that I placed on my back was actually a doll from Walmart. Nobody knows that. But Glenna did an amazing job because she made that baby look like a real Shoshone baby. And the feeling was awesome. Although a few years later, after I did the marketing and helped with the United States Mint, I learned that there was a lot of other products that had my face and my image, my facial characteristics, and I did not receive a penny from any of those products. I learned some hard lessons. Nobody tells you how to act, how to manage your money, how to manage contracts, when your face is placed on a currency. It's something that, no one could mentor me about my experience. And here I am today. I have 3 children. I work just like everybody else, and I'm very proud to work for my tribe. I work as the public affairs manager for the Shoshone-Bannock tribes in Fort Hall, and I feel really good about things, but I also am very concerned as well, because the history of Sacagawea is being told in a good way, in a good light, but there's also been some things that I had to endure on a personal level. And but I'm here today, and I'm happy to share my story. And I know I only have 10 minutes, and I'm not sure where I'm at on my minutes, but I'm very happy to be here in Idaho Falls, and I was in Boise yesterday. So this is my home. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm raising my children here. So I'm very happy to be here and share my story with everybody. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. What's your daughter's name? Sorry, we didn't get that. A little closer into the phone.
Her name is Abalone Rose.
Abalone Rose. Beautiful. Well, nice to meet you too, Abalone. Thank you so much, Randy L. Teton. She is the only living person on U.S. currency. And that's it. That's her. Yeah. And now a big spokesman for the tribes. She was here in Boise yesterday because she had some events with some legislators, and with Bannock that are here in Boise as well. Well, thank you for that story, Leanne. All right, we're going to move now to our slammer portion of the evening. And we have, I think, we have some people who put their names in a box here. Hey, Leanne, do you know if you have anybody that's submitted to tell a story in Idaho Falls?
I don't think we've had anyone here. I know I have my friend Mason, who's been bugging a couple people to try and come and tell stories. He's in the back right over there. If you do have a story, go say hi to Mason. He'll get you signed up.
Okay, so if nobody in the next 5 minutes puts their name in, we know it's going to be Mason. So you can be going over your thoughts there, Mason. All right, let's bring the slammer box up here. All right, this probably isn't a surprise to anybody here because the first thing that happens is, oh look, this isn't actually a slammer's name. It's a message from our season sponsor. All right. The Pettit Group is a small, carefully curated team of experienced agents and incredible support staff. Our clients come first every day. And then there's a small list of things that they do here. And in honor of tonight's show, I will be emphasizing the word and. We are data geeks and people. We understand that a home is a main character in a life story and honor that in helping both buyers and sellers. We dot our I's and cross our T's. We believe in our community and invest in it. We care about homes and people, not transactions or Idaho Falls. I think I may have added something at the... Sorry about that. I'm sure you have your own lovely realty groups in Idaho Falls that'll be happy to help you. All right. Okay, let's draw our first slammer here in Boise, Idaho. And Leanne, I'm going to hang up with you during this story, and then I'll call you again for our slammer in Idaho Falls for Mason's story. All right, I'm going to expect some kind of musical sting after I read this name, because it's going to be super exciting. Wow, this is becoming a regular feature at Story Night. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our slammer of the year, Bean, who has shared with us other punctuation marks, and tonight we'll be sharing the ampersand. Let me remind you. Let me remind you that you have 5 minutes to tell your story on the theme. She's an old pro, so she knows how all of this works. Tonight, also remember that we are a PG-13 audience, family audiences, so do not use what some people might call tough language.
I'm back. It just pays to be a ham, you guys, really. So, and I thought, what is and? And is like addition, also, to, and what was a big and in my life. And that was getting our home. And homes are so, what do we do when we're scared, we're hungry, we're happy, we're tired? What do we want to do? We want to go home. And you definitely, if you've ever been a backpacker, you homer. That take you 3 days to get into that lake, it's going to take you 2 days to get out because you're homering. Even though they do move the trailhead back a half a mile, you swear to God they do. You know, and the only thing that gets you through is you've got beer in the car. Yay. And as Dandy would say, there's orange food in the car. And that. So our good friends, Bobette and Patrick, called us one day, 1985, and said, there's this really cute little house for sale in our neighborhood, and we want you to come over and buy it. And we're like, well, we don't got a pot to piss in. And they're like, well, I'm sure you can get Idaho Housing Authority, and so come over and look at it. So we drove over, and we, parked in the house, and it was this cute little 1950s house in Collister area and off in the northwest Boise, and the kind that you would draw as a kid, with the thing and the 2 windows and a big tree on this side. And we park it, and the woman comes out, and this little old lady comes out, and she, come, and so we're like, well, we heard that this house is for sale, and so we'll come in and let me show it to you, and everything. And so she walked in, and it was a 1952 little stucco home. They were the second owners. She kept referring to her husband as Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown had the cute little alcoves in the ceiling, and all those great little thing, and it looked out right at the Heron Hollow wetlands with the slough coming at things. So it was a great piece of property, and she said, oh, I would love it as a nice little young couple, like you would get our home, and when she was the second owner, which is kind of nice because we were the second owners. She was the first owner, and we were the second owners of that house. And my parents, when they bought the house on Harrison, they were the second owners of that house. So that's kind of funny. And so we look at the house and we really like it, and it's just a little tiny 700 square foot little 2-bedroom home. But we get home and Danny says, call her up and tell her not to sell it to anybody else. I'm going to try really hard to buy it. So I get in the phone book, landlines, no cell phones. And we used to fill the phone book a lot back then. And I'm looking up, Brown, 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 Brown on Alamosa. I said, hey, Danny, guess what her husband's first name was? He said, what? I said, James. Oh, we're going to buy James Brown's house. I took it as an omen. I knew it was true. So we moved in. First thing we did is we tore up the carpet, beautiful old hardwood floors underneath that were all yellows and golds and browns and things, and just cutting them in hands and knees with Murphy's Wood Oil soap and oiled them up, and there they were. And then Danny, we went to the home and garden shop, came home with a shopsmith. And through learning how to learn the shopsmith, Danny made this beautiful shop out in the one-car garage with that. In fact, one of the back workbench is the doors from the Sioux Ball Theater at BSU, which now the Sioux Ball Theater would now be the Danny Peterson Theater at the Morrison Center. So that's kind of a little come around with everything. And then back then you could also get, Idaho Power it was a 1950 gold medallion home with little Reddy kilowatt, and the mom and the dad and the 2 nuclear family on the thing. It was all electric. And we had a well with an electric pump. We were on the grid. And you could get a loan from Idaho Power to replace all the windows and pay $10 a month. Where did those things come from? And we did that, and then we worked at it and lived it and did everything. And then about 2002 or so, we built a tree house in our yard too, and it's big old silver maple with old lady access and everything. If there's a handle thing, if you reach out and there's not a handle, bring one over and we'll put it up. And we've had 10, 12 people up there at a time. It's really fun. Then fortunately in 2015, I was able to remodel the house. My father died in 2014, and bless his pea-picking heart, left all of us kids with a little bit of money. But I did have to take some money out of my Edward Jones account to finish it too, because you can go out of budget really easy, let me tell you. It's really thick. But it's the last place they haul me off. So our contractor asked, do you want to put something in the wall? And I said, yeah, I thought. But before that, walls and that, we tore down a wall. So I took a Sharpie and I wrote, thou wall, oh sweet and lovely wall, thanks courteous wall, Jove shield thee well for this. And then they tore it down. And he asked me, do you want to put something in the wall? I said, yeah. So I thought it was appropriate to put it in the spot where the bathtub was. Because Danny learned all his lines in the bathtub. The cleaner he had, the more lines he had. Or the more lines he had, the cleaner he was. And so I found this little jar that said Idaho Stash. I put some of Danny's ashes in there. I put his Euler pin, which is the Norwegian god for snow, for his Norwegian roots. I put my NAN pin, National Association of Neonatal Nurses, in there. A ring that said Dan and Bean on it. And a picture of us with who we were, when we were married, when Danny died, and sealed it up, and they put it in the wall. And so who knows, later down the road when someone remodels or something, they're gonna find us there. Thanks.
beautiful. Like, just thinking about the list of things, the ands that we would put together that represent our lives together. That's something to think about. So far we've heard a story about the and being something about complicity, being complicit, that realizing later, maybe years later, that we are part of an and we didn't realize we were part of. We also heard about a person who was missing an and, at least someone who was watching out for them, protecting them, looking out for their interests, the and here. One of the things, and Danny Peterson being a theater person would also have had this, there's a mantra in the theater world of improvisation where you say yes and. And one of my more surreal experiences in improv training was with a group called Stuffed and Unstrung. It was a Henson workshop. Part of the reason I'm able to hold this phone up for so long is I'm a professional puppeteer. We were in this improv workshop for this show. Leanne, are you fascinated by this? I can't hear you yet, but you can just nod if you're finding this really interesting. All right, I'll dial you in a second. We were doing the workshop, and I found myself in a two-person scene, an improv scene that we were being trained to do, with the puppeteer who does Mr. Snuffleupagus and Telly Monster, and remembering this mantra of yes and. So we've been told that our scenario is going to involve a merry-go-round. And what was not smart on my part is I immediately decided, okay, we're going to be on the merry-go-round, and I'm going to be on the edge of it, and the Mr. Snuffleupagus is going to be in the middle. And so we start the scene, and I put my character on, and it's all on a screen like this. So the audience is watching you, the puppeteer, with the puppet too, but the camera is focused on the puppet, and so all they see on the screen is the puppet. And I am killing myself trying to create the illusion that my puppet is on the merry-go-round. So imagine Marty's here in the middle, and I'm doing something like this. Is I will never get on a merry-go-round. And I'm thinking, yes. And I have really bad news for you because you're in the middle of a merry-go-round right now. The scene never really recovered after that point. All right, let's get Leanne on the phone. Call. Speaker. And Leanne, I wonder if maybe, rather than you being on speaker, maybe you just hold the phone to your head, and we might get actually a better sound that way.
Right, no, I have not been on speaker this entire time. It's been like this.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So, did we have any brave people put their name in the hat, or is it going to be your dear friend?
We do have a brave person that is in the audience that put his name in the hat. Come on up, Sam.
All right. Is it
This is Sam Hawker, everyone.
Sam Hawker. All right, Sam. So you might have heard the rules earlier. You have 5 minutes to tell your story. Since I'm here on stage with you for your story, what will happen when your 5 minutes is getting close is you will sense from your audience there in Idaho Falls probably that the time is ending, because I'm going to turn to the camera over here, and I'm going to get larger and larger, and my eyes will get bigger and bigger. But I'm sure, okay, but take it away. We're excited to hear your story. Sam from Idaho Falls.
All right, I'm like super scared right now. I'm basically shaking. All right, so I'm gonna tell you how I can draw. So when I first started, I was really bad at it. I could like barely draw stickmen and stuff, and so I just kept doing it for like over like 2 years, maybe even 3. I kept drawing, and I eventually got really good. I'm actually working on a school drawing, working on a drawing in school, so yeah. And Leanne is actually my teacher, so my moral studies teacher. So it's just, I came here for extra credit because she said. But anyways, the theme of my story is that if you just keep practicing, you'll eventually get there. So.
All right. Hey, Sam, what is your drawing of? What kind of things do you draw?
Like anime, that kind of stuff. So.
What kind of stuff? Anime. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Big eyes, right?
No. I usually, who helps me draw is like, I watch tutorials and stuff, so it's like, I usually watch Yari Session Art, so.
All right, cool. Well, keep up with the art, and congratulations on your extra credit. Sorry, say that again?
But now you all know I bribe my students.
I think that's fantastic. We love to get young storytellers up on the stage, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Well, believe it or not, we have reached the time that we call intermission. We may try to do a little tech work during intermission, too, so I'm going to keep you on the line, Leanne, and we'll talk about that. The box office is open in the lobby for our next show, which is the February 27th semicolon, and it's the only time you're able to get tickets using cash or a check, not online unless you're here, so that's available to you. And we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Please enjoy more music from Evett and Costello.
it's alright. Ain't no use in turning on the light, babe. It's a light I never know. And there ain't no use in turning on the light, babe. I'm on the dark side of the road. Well, I've been hoping there was something you could do or say to help me change my mind to stay. Yeah, but we never did too much talking anyway. So don't think twice, it's alright. But there ain't no use in calling out my name, girl, like you never done before. Well, there ain't no use in calling out my name, girl. I can't hear you anymore. I've been thinking and wondering down that road that I once loved a woman. She was a child, I was told. She gave me her heart, but I wanted her soul. So don't think twice, it's alright. So long, honey, baby.
Test 1 2 3.
Where I'm bound, Idaho Falls can't tell. Ain't no use in right, babe. So I will just say that way. I ain't saying that you cheated me unkind. You could have done better, babe, but I don't mind. Yeah, you was kind of wasted some time. Yeah, precious time. So don't think twice. Well, it's alright, alright, alright. Don't think twice, it's alright. But it's alright, alright. Well, it's alright, alright. Testing, testing. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. What you got? Got my G-string drifting. That's what I got.
Danger, G-string drift.
spent my summer in a place that I affectionately call camp, with other people that I wouldn't necessarily call bad. Maybe they were just like me, good people getting caught doing bad things. Still I decided it wasn't my scene, so I escaped every day at 10:03. I took the 5 at 10:18 and rolled down to Orchard Street, a little thing called work release, selling guitars and fixing things. Maybe they thought they were fixing me, selling my debt to society. But every night I had to go back. A good night's sleep wasn't the only thing that I lacked. Counting the days till I'd get out, I'd kiss your face and we'd scream and shout. Joy, laughter, and love, and everything that life's about, yeah. Oh, home is where the heart is, and I'm a-coming home to you, yeah. And every day that we're apart is, well, it's a day I wish were true. I'll find a way to make it through till I'm a-coming home to you, yeah. Yes, I'm a-coming home to you. Spent your patience gently trying to tell me that I was full of it. I finally got the message, but you were so mad that you could spit. And every night I had to go back. This old guitar wasn't the only thing that I lacked. Count the days till I'd be out, I'd kiss your face and you'd scream and shout. Joy, laughter, and love, and everything that life's about, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, home is where the heart is, and I'm a-coming home to you. And every day that we're apart is, well, it's a day I wish were true. I'll find a way to make it through till I'm a-coming home to you, yeah. Yes, I'm a-coming home to you. Oh, I'm a-coming home to you. Oh, home is where the heart is. Oh, home is where the heart is. Oh, home is where James Brown is. Kiss my feet and smell my
And Costello.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, in just a moment, as we get started with our second act, they are going to do a featured song, but before that I have a couple of announcements. I was handed this note. The first line on it says, "Help." And this person has lost a cell phone. It has cat ears on the blue case, and it looks like this. Please turn it in to Lost and Found. Thank you. Also, our tech guy has lost his laptop, and I think he said something about a raspberry on it or something like that. So we're looking for a cell. You found it? No. So we're looking for a cell phone and laptop. And I forgot. Dan, please, our tech minds are just beyond the limit now. Well, we'll do that later. So right now, Evet's song titled Right This Time Around.
1, 2. Everybody do the wave to our good friends in Idaho Falls. I'll be at the Celtic Theater there in June. Time is just a frame of mind. I'll be living here a long, long time. PG-13, remember on those handsels. But it's time to go in the canopy, hiding there among the leaves, staring at the ground below. Came right on time, started on an epic climb. I can't decide if I'm going up or down. Lows, seeing where the sidewalk goes, falling over on my toes. In real time, I know the high is just a shadow in disguise. I've been saving all my alibis to put you asleep tonight, but you came right on time. First star I see tonight might be a late, and I know you're a part of me on account of the economy. Help put my feet back on the ground. Well, you were right this time around. Jankowski, everybody. But you came right on time. First star I see tonight, some satellite. I had myself a dream, tangled in a ball of string, hiding underneath the wings of a black winged bird. He flies, taking me across the sky. Guess I need to wonder why that you never heard that you came right on time. Babies in the nest, beaks open wide. I can see the hunger in their eyes, and I know you're part of me on account of the economy. Help me put my feet back on the ground. Well, you were at this time around. Ampersand, do you understand? You were at this time around. Idaho Falls, are you with me? Idaho Falls, are you there? A show of hands if you're still alive. Oh, yeah.
Beautiful, so beautiful. There's some clapping hands right there. Hey, Leanne, we think we... What? What, can I hear you? With...
Can you hear me now?
A ring or anything, that's amazing. I got a ring right here. You can hear, whenever you're in Boise, Leanne, or any of your friends there in Idaho Falls, you can hear Ned Evet and Dan Costello all over the place. They're amazing musicians, and it's fitting that they're here for Ampersand together because Mr. Ned Evet composed the theme song for Story Story Late Night, and Mr. Dan Costello composed the theme song for the Story Story Night flagship. So you hear both of their music on our podcast at the intro and outro for each of our podcasts are from these two talented gentlemen right here. And of course, you folks in our podcast at storystorynight.org/podcast. We're gonna start this, I think, and as I mentioned earlier, though, tonight's show is sponsored by Idaho Women Lawyers. We already had the theme of ampersand, but it was a team from this group which actually pushed us to think of the ampersand as representing mentorship and collaboration, which is something that their group does a lot of. I think I hear some mentees or mentors out there right now. Here is a short message from them. Idaho Women Lawyers, IWL, is a dynamic group of women and men who work toward a collective purpose of improving the legal profession for women. Today, we have more than 200 members throughout the state who collaborate in support of the IWL mission through the promotion of equal rights and opportunities. Yes.
Yeah. That's very exciting because we here in Idaho Falls have a branch of the Idaho Women's Lawyers too. Is there anyone in the audience from them? No? Well, we do have one, so that's exciting.
Okay. I know that we have some IWL members in our audience. Will you identify yourselves? Okay, there they are over there. Great. So they actually, in addition to sponsoring tonight's show, they also hired Story Studio to do a private workshop with them on developing a 5-minute story, and I know that they have been encouraged to drop their name into our Story Slammer box. It's possible we might draw one of them. And of course, any of you are welcome to go to a Story Studio. The next one is on February 6th here at Jump, and it's on a Tuesday night, just like the show, from 6 to 8 p.m., a small intimate group, and you get to learn more about developing your own personal story and taking a story and maybe eventually bringing it up here and sharing it with all of us. So let's find out who's going to do that right now from Boise, and then Leanne will discuss what we're going to do in Idaho Falls next after that.
We have a story slammer here in Idaho Falls.
Oh, fantastic. We can't wait. All right. Our story slammer, in our next story slammer, again, 5 minutes on a theme without notes. And I would normally say no, if, and, or buts, but our next storyteller is Chris. Quite a loot you got over there.
All right, I actually just came here from work. That's why I have so much stuff in there. And I've actually been in contact with Jodi about my work. I work at Frank Church High School. We're an alternative high school for the Boise School District. So we're working really hard on getting some of our students to come out here, and have been working really hard on it, and it totally crashed and burned tonight. We didn't get any students to come, but we're going to keep working on it. But I want to talk a little bit about mentorship, and I think that's a big takeaway right there, is that sometimes mentorship means you got to try more than once or twice or 3 times. And that's a lot of what my day looks like at Frank Church. So an alternative high school, if you don't know, is an alternative to the regular high school. So if the regular high school didn't work for the kid, you got to try something different, because a lot of these kids are there for a long list of reasons I could go into, but usually they're not good ones. So we'll just use your imagination from there. And I learned a couple things about mentoring for my students leading into Thanksgiving break. And one of the things that we try to do in this classroom that I'm in with the gal I teach with, Mrs. Carter, is we kind of come together in a little morning meeting, a question that we pose to them, and we talk about it and kind of get on the same page. It's our way to help them become better people. And so, you know, we tried it this year, and it's going really well, and our students even got into it, and they gave us a bunch of suggestions, and you know, we tried those, but then we got the hang of it. We're the teachers, we're the experts, we're the mentors. We start calling the shots with the prompts from there, and that week leading into Thanksgiving, we're trying to get a bunch of stuff done, and every day the student, we'll call him Fred, very outgoing, very gregarious guy, and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Butts, I got this prompt for you. It's really good. You got to try it, man." And I'm like, "Well, Fred, I got a bunch of other stuff we got to do. You got to tell us how thankful you are for this, and what you're going to do over the break, and this and that." And every day he's bugging me about it. Break, and I'm like, "All right, Fred, what's your prompt? Let's do it. I didn't even ask him about it beforehand. He just shares it with the little group, and he goes, would you rather live or die today? And in my head, as a teacher, I was like, that's the stupidest prompt ever, Fred. Like, anybody's going to be like, well, duh, and then we're going to move on. And I was just like, all right, here we go. Let's see how this goes. And they totally floored me. I was blown away at how many of those kids didn't want to live. I feel like I'm in tune with them. I get to know them. I know their names. I think that I know their stories. And they just started dishing. I don't want to wake up in the morning. I don't want to come to school. And I'm, classic guy. I don't like to cry. I don't like to share emotions, especially in front of my students. And they about had me in tears. And the best part about it was that they were able to mentor each other through a lot of those conversations. Because one thing I've learned is that as a mentor, it doesn't mean you have to teach them everything. It means you have to put them around people that can teach each other some things. And they were the first ones to jump in with each other and say, hey, you need to not think like that. You need to find the things that are worth waking up for. You need to find all these positive things that I see in you. You need to see it in yourself. So one of the things I learned the first part of that day is that sometimes you got to bend a little bit, and you got to listen to the people that you're working with, even when you think that their idea might be kind of terrible. And the other thing that I learned with later that morning was we're going to do some writing, and I was like, we're going to do some real writing. We're going to send it out there, and you guys are going to write a note to somebody that you're thankful for, and you're going to send it today, and I want to know that you're going to send it out. It's got to be real. None of this fake writing stuff that we, write in papers and stuff. So we sit down and I pull them and like, what's your, how do you guys like to communicate with people? And I'm expecting, Snapchat and YouTube videos, and Facebook Messenger was the #1 winner. So I said, okay, guys, we'll write some Messenger messages to people. So one of my students, we'll call him Barney, a little more quiet guy, a little more reserved. He writes a note to his mom. Or actually, let me back up. The first person he wanted to write to was his dad. But his dad is OG and lives under the radar, and he can't be in contact with him. And I was like, all right. And then I have a restraining order against contacting that kid. I was like, sorry, man, you're out of options now. Who's it going to be? And he goes, well, I guess I'll write a note to my mom. And I was like, okay, right on, man. We got a winner. So he writes a sweet little thankful note to his mom. And it's, we read over it, and it looks really good. And I'm like, all right, man, it's time to send it. And he just doesn't want to send it. And I was just like, and Barney and I are pretty tight. We've known each other for a while, and that was one thing I wouldn't bend on. That's one thing I wouldn't listen to him. And I said, Barney, you got to click send on this one. You need to let your mom know what you're thankful for. And so I got him to do it, and he sent it. And about 5 minutes later, he shows me his phone, and it's a text from her letting him know that his message made her cry, and it made her day. So sometimes you got to know when to listen, and sometimes you got to know when to stick it to them. So that's what I've learned about mentoring this year for my kids.
Thank you, Chris. Chris and I actually have been working together since September on trying to do something to collaborate with the students there and get them to shows and do some work with them. And like you said, we haven't made it happen yet, but we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep working on it. All right, Leanne, who do you have for us? Who do you have for us in Idaho Falls?
We have our story slammer, J.R. Brooks.
All right, J.R.
Stand for me? It unfortunately doesn't stay, but I can hold it if you want me to.
Well, I'm about the right height.
It really fit. Yeah, I know. It's for sure.
I talk with my hands. Okay. I'm going to talk about my mom. She didn't think she was much of a mom. All she wanted to be was a doctor, and she was a doctor. And I think she got her degree like in 1949. And guess what? Nobody wanted to see her because she was a woman. She managed to have 6 children, and I heard her say one day in the car, I didn't want to have any children. And I'm like thinking, well, that's not really comforting. And then my sister, who was the other part of the conversation, said, so why didn't you not have children? And Mom said, well, we didn't get to the drugstore on time. And I thought, oh, I think that makes me think of. So, life is interesting when you eavesdrop. Don't do it. My mom, my first happiest memory, and I have lots of them with her, is dancing around on the kitchen floor. I'm standing on her feet, so I'm in perfect time. And she would just, I didn't know who Ginger Rogers was, but apparently I felt like Ginger Rogers because she felt like Fred Astaire. And I loved it. I just knew that I always wanted to dance. But I was a pretty shy little kid. Turns out I'm hard of hearing. I didn't know that. I swam in a polluted lake when I was 4, lost a lot of my hearing. I'm also dyslexic, and I didn't know that either, but it sure explained why I couldn't read. So I was pretty quiet. In a family of 6 kids, that's easy to do, to be quiet. And my mom was worried about it, so she made puppets, and she had me make puppets. And then she made a theater, and then she made scripts, and then she made me learn the scripts and made me do the puppets. And I could do that. I could get behind this wooden thing where I was invisible and stick my hands up there and do all sorts of great things and be verbal. I made sound effects. When we did Punch and Judy, I would rip the head off a Scaramouche, the mailman, and throw it into the audience. I was gregarious. It was wonderful. And that experience of being verbal and emotional and gregarious behind the wall made it that I could actually get out from behind the wall and be gregarious. I mean, I'm talking in front of you today. I didn't come here planning to do it, but I have no fear of public speaking. And I think it started behind the wall. Since I was dyslexic, I did everything I could in school not to write a paper. Heavens. Teachers loved kids who gave oral reports. And I really couldn't read, but I could listen. And I memorized everything anybody ever said. And I gave oral report on everything I ever heard. And the teachers loved it. So, that was a great gift my mom gave me, to be able to speak out. Later on, I'm in business. Because I'm dyslexic, I didn't go to college. Who wants to work that hard? I just thought, all right, everybody's talking about how many hours they're spending on homework, and I'd have to do twice as many hours. Good grief, no, thank you. My mom offered to pay. She said, oh, you love oceanography. Why don't you do it? You've done it for 6 years. And I said, it's a hobby. If it turns into a job, I'd hate it. So I went out and got a beginning job. And from that beginning job, I went to other beginning jobs. And in the course of all this, computers were up and coming. And I watched the computer operators. And I'd go in there and ask them how they do that. And I learned how to do their job. And then I went to another place and said, I've never had that for a job, but I watched them do it, and I can do it. I can do anything. I could run your shift in 2 weeks' time if you hire me. And if I don't pay me anything, send me home. They hired me. They liked my balls. Anyway, when I have 1 minute left, would you let me know? Okay, thank you. Anyway, so I'm doing a great job here, but my first name's Jeanette, and I'm the only female in this organization. And they got really mad because they hired a female. They didn't want one. And I thought, I've got to do something to sort of get rid of this soft and gentle personality that I have. J.R. Ewing was on this TV at that time. I'd never seen Dallas. But that was the year they shot him. And I thought, my initials are JR, I'm going to become JR. He's the meanest man in Dallas. I'm going to be the meanest man in Seattle. So I sign everything JR, and people start calling me that. and it makes me feel like I can say no, and you will, and so forth. So this really helps me. And then my mother gives me a book called Games Mother Never Taught You. I devoured the book. It's all about business. That year, I got 26% in raises because I read that book. My boss came around and he said, we were going to say that we're doing small merit raises, but you're not getting one because I just looked at your portfolio and you got 26% in the last 12 months. That's because the book taught me to improve wherever I work. Give value, give your best, document it, go into your boss and say, this is what I've done, this is what's value, and I deserve money for this because you're going to save money, you're going to make money. And so I did. Thanks, Mom. That was great. Eventually, I became so good at all sorts of things having to do with computers and business based on the wisdom my mom shared with me. And I worked part-time, supported my husband going through medical school, bought a house, adopted 2 children on my salary. So Mom did a good job. And the final piece I want to share with you takes me full circle to my first happiest moment with Mom. At my wedding, my dad gets sick whenever anything emotional happens, whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion. I sent him to a photography seminar for my wedding because I said, I don't want you to die because I get married, you know. So would you please go to a seminar? You'll live. I'll see you afterwards. And so my mom did the father-daughter dance with me. And oh my goodness, was she Fred Astaire. And I knew who Ginger Rogers was. She took me around this huge floor. We were flying. The skirts were out there. And wow, she was great. And I am so blessed that she had 6 kids that she didn't want and did a great job being a mom and a doctor.
Oh, that was gorgeous. Thank you, JR. And I miss you on Dallas. Leanne, one note for you there in Idaho Falls for our next featured storyteller. If you can hold the mic actually a little further away, we're having a little bit of a distortion issue when it's up close to the mouth. So actually a little better, tell Grayson, just hold it a little bit further away. I didn't realize that the mic stand was actually just a prop.
Yeah, it was more to, this is the center stage, because I always apparently tried to come over here, and it's off stage for you, so.
Okay, well good, we're glad it's there to keep you centered then.
Yeah, I try.
All right, tell us about our last featured storyteller.
Okay. We're coming to Idaho Falls for that?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
No, we are not. We are not,
Sorry,
you are correct.
Confused.
I got so excited about all the mentorship that was going on, I almost skipped. We don't always have our sponsor have an idea for a featured storyteller, and Leanne just saved me big time because we have in Boise, Idaho, a featured storyteller who did come from the Idaho Women Lawyers Group. Please welcome to the stage Peg Dougherty. I don't know what happened.
It's okay. Thank you. Okay, the good thing is, if I screw this up, I'm already going to tell you that I'm just doing it for extra credit. So when Idaho Women Lawyers asked me to tell a story about mentorship, I quickly said yes. And I thought, this is not going to be hard. After all, I have had the benefit of many tremendous mentors in my life who have paved the way for me. And throughout my career, I have tried to be a good mentor for others. And then when I heard that the punctuation theme of the night was the ampersand, I thought, perfect, because mentorship is in large part about making connections. But the story I want to tell you tonight is more about how I came to believe that easing the way for others is important and imperative. I come from a big Irish Catholic family of 9 kids: Mamie, Molly, Dan, Tim, Peggy, Carrie, Terry, Maureen, and Bridget. I am smack dab in the middle of this clan with 4 older, the big kids, and 4 younger, the little kids. And the beauty of being from a big family is that there is always somebody there to do something with. But for me, the benefit of the big kids, I had 4 people who paved the way for me in much of my life. They conquered many, many firsts. The first day of kindergarten, the first day of junior high, the first day of high school. And I got to witness all of those firsts, which took away any fear I might have about the unknown. There were many classrooms that I entered into and had a teacher smile at me and say, "Another Dougherty." I felt like I belonged. I had this feeling of being connected without really much effort on my part. I learned from my older siblings where the boundaries were. I learned from their mistakes, and I learned from their successes. If I ever had a problem, I had resources that were right there at the dinner table every night. And in turn, I was expected to provide the same for the little kids. Now, that expectation was not something that our parents sat us down and spelled out for us. It was something that they demonstrated by example. And the one example that has had a lifelong impact on me it involved my youngest sister, Bridget. When Bridget was 4 or 5 years old, my parents were concerned that she was not developing at the same rate as the rest of us had. So they consoled my mom and dad, "Don't worry, she's fine. It might be a little bit slow, but she has 8 brothers and sisters who are doing everything for her." But my mom really wasn't satisfied with that response. And so she arranged to have Bridget evaluated at a child development center. Now, all of us kids knew that mom and dad were taking Bridget for testing. And we didn't really ask a lot of questions about what was that testing for and what was going to be the outcome. But we knew that this was going on for several weeks. And we also knew when it was concluded and that mom and dad had a final meeting with the people at the center. And I remember coming home from school that day and asking my mom, "How did it go? What did you learn?" And she told me, "We're just going to talk about it tonight at dinner." We were all sitting at the dinner table. My mom explained to us that Bridget was developmentally disabled. And she barely got those words out of her mouth when one of my younger sisters just burst into tears. We had a close family friend who lived in the neighborhood, and this family had, in the early 60s, a child who was born with Down syndrome, Charlie. And because we had the most kids at our house in the neighborhood, our house was kind of the go-to hangout place. So Charlie, as a toddler, was around a lot. And then when he turned probably 6 or 7 years old, to institutionalize him, which unfortunately was not uncommon at the time. So after that happened, my mom used to go to this place where Charlie now lived called Ridge and visit him, and she would take all of us with her, and we would go to Ridge. It was this cold gray building that had a big fence around it, and when you walked in, you had to sign in, and it was noisy, and there were people there of all ages and all disabilities who were living in this building and being cared for by people who wore uniforms, dads or families around. So When my younger sister heard that night at dinner that Bridget was developmentally disabled, she asked my parents through her tears, did that mean that Bridget was going to have to go live with Charlie at Ridge? And I remember that moment. And even though this conversation happened in like just minutes of time, I remember being very confused and thinking, that never even entered my mind. But she was younger, and this was how she related to the world, and so this was obviously an important question. And my mom immediately said, of course not, absolutely not. Bridget is part of our family. She will always be part of our family, and she will always live with us. What this means is that and my mom and dad actually went on to say that there was nothing that our family did that was going to change. Bridget was always going to be included and always be brought along with everything that we normally did. The only thing that was going to change was that Bridget was going to go to a different school than the rest of us. And we were all going to have to watch out for her just a little bit more. We were going to have to help her a little bit more. And we were going to have to take a little more time with her. And that was the case. Bridget went to a different school, and we took turns taking her to the bus in the morning or meeting her bus after school. We spent our days at the pool, but before we could leave the house to go to the pool, we had to have a schedule so that we knew who was going to take care of Bridget, play with her, keep an eye on her for each hour that we were going to be there. Bridget was never left out. And at the time, we probably complained about that. But I realize now that our parents had given us this sense of love and belonging, and then entrusted us with the responsibility to provide that for one another. It is this connectedness that has given me strength and confidence throughout my life. When I think of the people who have been mentors for me, both friends and colleagues who have become friends, they have consistently opened doors for me and connected me with people and experiences that I would not have been able to find by myself. Maybe the key to being a good mentor, to finding a good mentor, is to first think about what qualities and characteristics are important to you, and then be that for someone else, or look for those qualities in someone that you might like to be your mentor. Today, Bridget is a happy woman. She works at Pizza Hut. She skis with the Special Olympics every year. She has an active social life with an adult group in her community. She still lives with my mom. We lost my dad in 2002, and my mom, of course, is getting older. So our conversations inevitably turn to planning for Bridget's future. And those plans are pretty much the same as the pool schedule, just a variation on that theme. You know, we will all pitch in and make sure that Bridget is well cared for, that she is loved, that she has a sense of being connected, and that she belongs, both in our family and in the community that she lives in. Bridget is the ampersand of our family. She is the one person in our family who will always have an and. She won't ever be alone. But she is also the person that will keep all of us connected. Thank you.
Well, Leanne, I brought my notes with me this time so I don't jump ahead.
All right.
Thank you for that beautiful story, Peg. Peg has, in getting to know her, I've learned how she had a mentor for herself when she moved into the legal profession, and then became a mentor. But the transition for that to happen was very interesting, because the way she met her mentee is she came out of her office and there were police standing out in the parking lot, and she walked over and realized they were around her car, and this woman had run into her car, and that is the person that she is now mentoring. I'm not sure whether that's in the legal profession or how to drive, but something like that. All right, Leanne, now we really are going to turn to you for our last featured storyteller.
All right, sounds good. This last storyteller, before I introduce him, I do want to I'll let you guys know that there are some, I guess we talked a little bit about suicide and dysphoria, but it is a fantastic story. So without further ado, here's Grayson Cullen.
I like to talk with my hands too, but we have a prop. We have an injured shoulder, so here we are. A baby was born July 2nd, 1991. They wrapped the child in pink blankets, and they gave the child the name Rachel Grace Cullen. I had a fairly average childhood. I had a mom, a dad, a younger brother by 2 years. But I always seemed to treat him like he was my older brother. I would follow him around. I would do things that he did. I befriended his friends. I did things specifically to see how he would respond to them. I even wore his clothes because I was very petite, and I got his hand-me-downs or hand-me-ups. So I really felt like his younger brother. When I became a teenager, I had some confusing thoughts. I wanted to be free. I had this very distinct feeling of wanting to be free, but I didn't know what from. It was not specific to a person or a place or a thing. I just longed for freedom. It later turned into a feeling that something was missing from me. I thought maybe that it was external love, so I looked for external love in many ways for a long time. Finally, though, I realized what I was really missing was internal love or self-love. And being faced with that, I had to realize that I had a lot of self-hate. I struggled. I would go long periods of time without showering, without changing my clothes, without looking into a mirror. I would avoid cameras and any videos and anything like that. It was hard. I remember specifically one time I was looking into the mirror, looking right into my own eyes. I was so distraught by the way that I felt about myself. I honestly wanted to change, and I did not know how. So I did the only thing that I knew how to do. I've always known that I've been attracted to women, so I thought to myself, if I saw these eyes on someone else, I would be attracted to them. If I saw this smile on someone else, I would be attracted to them. I went on and on through my whole body, trying so hard to convince myself that that was self-love. Really, it was a Band-Aid that I had to reapply often, and it seemed to get harder the more I tried to reapply it. I basically just embraced the fact that I would have to live with hating myself, that it was going to be a part of me. 2017 was a really hard year for me. I had a lot of losses. I feel like for some of that time I lost myself in grief. There have been 3 generations of men in my family who have taken their lives due to suicide. I've known that from a young age. And from a young age, I knew that I would be the next, that I would be the 4th generation. I did not want it to be that way, but I knew. So in 2017, I self-admitted myself into a mental hospital 3 different times, and because I needed the help. And when they asked me, why are you here? What is going on in your life? I told them that I was tired. I was so tired of putting on a mask, of smiling all the time, of being okay for everyone, of everyone's expectations for me. And it didn't even feel like it was from them. If I knew that it came from me, that I put others' expectations on myself. I was just tired. This summer, I moved back to Idaho Falls. In October, there was a PSA. You may have seen it. It involved a family celebrating Halloween. There was a mother, a father, a daughter, and a son. The commercial showed them working on carving pumpkins, and they just looked so happy and so wonderful and cohesive. And then it showed a still of the finished pumpkins. One of them was Wonder Woman and the other was Batman. So the mom walks in and holds the costumes high, and the kids run off to get changed. And then it shows the dad looking anxious, a little bit scared. When moments ago he was so happy, he was so full of excitement. The mom stands next to him and comforts him and says, "They're gonna look great." It shows them trick-or-treating a little bit later, and it focuses mainly on the parents. Kind of shows the kids back and the person that they're trick-or-treating, the door that they're trick-or-treating at. And the dad, again, he looks very anxious. The mom says something to the effect of, they're doing awesome. And then it goes to the end of the night, and the 2 kids are passed out on the floor with candy all around them. They're face down. The parents carry them to their room. And at that point, it reveals that the little girl was Batman and the little boy was Wonder Woman. The dad gingerly tucks them in. He walks to the door. He goes to close the door and he says, "My heroes." And then it fades to the screen that says, "Be whoever you are," with the hashtag, "My heroes." It touched me so deeply. I figured that it would. I mean, I've been in the LGBTQIA scene in the circles my whole life. I'm a very sensitive and emotional person, so it made sense that it would touch me. Absolutely. But it lingered. It stayed with me. It wouldn't leave me. So it really forced me to do some self-reflecting. And that can also be very hard. So I looked on YouTube, I looked on Google, I researched gender and sexuality and everything I could possibly think of to my heart's extent, because it just wouldn't leave me. I have a really good friend in Boise. His name is Josh. He's very important to me. When I moved from Boise, we downloaded the app Marco Polo. For those of you who don't know, it is a video app where you are able to record messages to each other at your own convenience, and then they can watch it whenever and reply whenever. And in fact, as you're making the video, they can watch it. They don't respond. It's not live back and forth, but they're able to watch it. So it's a very nice way to have communication and connectedness, even if you can't really be together. So I contacted my friend Josh and I told him that I was struggling, that I wanted to go by he, him, that I wanted to figure out what was going on with me. Immediately, he used those pronouns. Immediately, he asked me, "What name, if any, are you thinking of?" And then I told him, I was born Rachel Grace Cullen. The name Grace was a family name. It was passed down, and it meant a lot to me. So I decided that Grayson was the name for me because it brought who I was into who I am. Immediately, he started calling me Grayson. He changed my name in his phone. It felt so good. He had had a nickname for me, but since my name had changed, he decided that he wanted to change my nickname. The first time he called me little brother, I had no idea I could feel so much validation. It touched me so deeply. On October 22nd, 2017, Grayson Cullen was born. In many ways, I let Rachel go, but in many other ways, I accepted her more than I ever had. And I am finally free.
Thank you, Grayson. That was awesome. Oh, that's right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Grayson. Thank you to all of our storytellers. What a beautiful night to share our ampersand between Boise and Idaho Falls. Thank you, Leanne, for hosting the space there for us.
And I want to thank you, Jodi, because without you, this would definitely not have been possible. So everyone thank Jodi for me.
The next time we do this, we'll be using the Marco Polo app. So we need,
it needs to be easier.
We need all of you to install it on your phones. And you can watch it apparently on your own time then. We've reached the part of our show where we have a lot of thank yous to give, and we don't always do this, but tonight, because this sign features an ampersand, we pulled it out because we do want to thank the support that we have from the Boise Arts and History Department. Thank you to our media sponsor, Radio Boise. We also have a radio show. It's Story Night on Stray Theater, which you can hear the Sunday before our live show from 5:30 to 6 p.m. And of course, you can always listen to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or however you listen to podcasts. The link is on our website. Thank you to our crew in Boise, Stephen Baldassare on sound and lights. Yeah, I had extra work tonight. And our photographer, Chelsea Harada. Look for her photos to pop up on Facebook and Instagram and tag yourself in just a few days. I also want to say a special thank you to Jesse Courts from Jump, who provided extra support for the simulcast tonight, fiddling all these chords that are going everywhere and trying to figure that out. That was a great help. And also to the camera crew that's here tonight that's filming our live stream that's on YouTube/Story Night. Thank you, Jesse. And Leanne, did you have some people you want to thank there in Idaho Falls?
Yes, absolutely. I really want to thank all of the crew that I have working in here. Some paid, some not. Thank you, Mason. I very much appreciate that. Brad Higby on sound and the rest of the entire auditorium crew that was here helping out. I really appreciate that. We had a lot of trouble setting up, as I'm sure you all witnessed. So we really, really appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, we can clap for them too. All right, and thank you to our volunteers and our on-site volunteer coordinator, Stephanie Moore, who was covered tonight by Karen Moore this evening, who I don't believe is any relation. Thank you to our board of directors, Amy Moran, Hannah Mae Schaefer, Karis Kimball, Karen Moore, Bob Haycock, and Marnie Ellis. Thank you to our administrative assistant, Carolyn Davis, our studio coordinator, Amanda Rich, and our marketing North Star and co-founder, Jessica Holmes. Thank you to Jump. And, of course, again, to the auditorium on Broadway, the MC Theater, the Idaho Falls Arts Council. And once again, mostly, thank you to all of you for your patience tonight, for your open hearts, for the ability of your will and spirit to transcend some 500 miles to connect with our storytellers between Boise and Idaho Falls, going on this experimental journey with us tonight. Our audiences are awesome, and I know that we are feeling each other tonight, and I appreciate what you bring to our shows. Good night. We'll see you next month.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you. You can get it on iTunes.